Hello, everybody. Sandra from Inspired Keys, and thank you for joining me for another live teaching session. And as you can see from the title today, the topic that I'm going to teach about is all about passing chords. So this is in response to Inspired Keys Academy members Rachel Poir as well as David Wettrick, who are asking about how to use passing chords when you play worship keys. So just a little background about creating this topic while I sip on my orange infusion drink right now, just to, make your otherwise very boring plain water a bit more interesting. Just put a little wedge of orange on there. And it is freezing right here in Melbourne, not extremely cold, kind of like 10 degrees, but it does feel pretty cold in the house and I haven't got any heating on. But guys, I actually recorded this twice. Now the problem is if you've done any form of video recording, the first time I recorded it, I just felt like, there were just too many ums and mistakes. And so I kind of recorded the entire thing and I just deleted it because I didn't like it. And then the second time I recorded it, I was like, okay, I gotta just do it, right? So then I recorded it, but then I think I just, I completely did not record my notes on the screen, the one where I play and you can see exactly what notes I play. Yep. So that one, I just kind of almost killed myself for it because I was like, what a waste of time. So this is my third attempt at teaching this topic. And I really want to get it right once and for all. And since I'm doing it live, I guess I will. But those of you who are watching, and I can see that some people are joining now, I just want to welcome you and please type into the chat your name and where you're from. And if you have any worship keys questions, do type it into the chat. Don't wait till the Q&A because I will usually teach a topic and then start to answer questions. So if you have questions, just type it into the chat on the right now. And in the meantime, I will get started. So today's topic is all about using passing chords to enhance worship harmonies. And if you would like to access the handouts, they are available inside the Inspired Keys Academy. You can go to inspiredkeys.com/handouts, and all the handouts I've ever created are parked over there. Now, if you're not yet an Inspired Keys Academy member, there is no better time to join because I am doing a limited time $1 trial where you can go in and check it out for 2 whole weeks. Go see if you like it. You can cancel anytime, no obligations. But if you do find it really helpful to your worship keys playing, then commit for a season of time, guys. Just like how you learn any skill, you can't just touch and go, watch a couple YouTube videos here and there. The power of the Inspired Keys Academy is not just in all the training videos, teaching videos I've ever created. You can just access that 24/7 once you're a member. You unlock the videos and you can just watch them anytime. There are a wide variety of topics on playing by ear and improvisation and so many more things like warm-ups and technique and stuff. But there's also the power in the community. So you can post recordings of your playing and get feedback on exactly how you can improve. And you could also ask your worship keys questions and I will answer them with priority, and Academy members can also chip in to help out. So I'd love to see you inside the Academy. Just go to inspiredkeys.com/join. Information available down at the description box. So let's get started with passing chords, and I shall now refer to my handout. So why would people need to use passing chords? Well, the word passing really gives a good clue. It's a bridge between two chords that are a bit of a distance apart. So it is basically to create a smooth link between chords. And usually the two chords are at least a third apart so that you can achieve something that's more of a stepwise motion. So if you want to achieve a difference in sound between two similar sections, for example, the worship songs that we play, they all typically have verse 1 and then chorus 1 and then verse 2 and then chorus 2, right? So using passing chords can be a great way to make a section, if you've heard it before and you hear it again, like maybe the verse 2 and the chorus 2, right? That's something you've heard before, but you want to make it a little bit different. Adding passing chords will help with that. So for example, the first chorus, it's just plain old chords. Second chorus has got passing chords between them, so that sort of enhances the way the second chorus or the second verse can sound. So there's you don't really need to use passing chords for like chords that are right next to each other, like chords 1 and 2, because these are, you know, direct neighbors. You could consider having something like chromatic passing note chords, but I'll talk more about chromatic passing notes chords later in this video. And I will want to start with some do's and don'ts on how to play passing chords so that they sound great. Because just like anything, there are rules. And so I have some do's and I have some don'ts. So do try to have stepwise motion, or at least maintain the same pitch on the top line to create a smooth sound. Okay, so the top line is really important, and I can link to a video about how to maintain top lines that are smooth to create a very nice and smooth melody when you play chords. And I'm probably going to just write that down so that I remember. Yeah, thanks. Just because if I don't write it down, I'm just going to forget. Yeah, when we play chords, even though if you're playing something like, let's see. Okay, if you're playing something like, right? So those are just 3 chords, but the topmost line of those chords can actually form a melody. So it was da, 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 and that is not such a good example because the top line moves a lot. It's right. But what I am suggesting is if you could try to keep your top line as maintained as possible, keep them at the same pitch, or maybe just have them move by step instead of by leaps, that would be good. So something like this is better, where the top line, I basically kept playing G, G, G. And just in case you feel like you want to see what I'm doing, okay, you know what I'll do is I shall turn on my screen sharing, so that way you could look at what I am playing, and you could also access my notes. So, okay, great. So you should be seeing my screen right now. And basically what I played with us now was, this is the bad example. Right? So the top notes were, and that's what I would prefer you not to do, because you have a lot of movement in your top line, and that could compete with the existing melodies that are going on in the song. So what I would rather you do is, right? So these are all examples of using the passing chord of a 2 in between a chord 1 and a 1B, but with the top line maintaining at a G, that's a lot better. So great. So that's the first do, guys. The second do is to try to have contrary motion between your top and bass lines. They do sound good. So maybe something like, okay, so let me just do what do that one more time. But first, I want to just outline to you what I mean by contrary motion. So contrary motion used to be the scale that, you know, people would have to do. We used to have to do that for our technical work, like, right? So your hands just kind of go apart and come back in. So contrary motion just means your hands move in opposite directions. So what I was doing just now, where I featured my topmost and my bottommost lines going in opposite directions like this. Right? So these are what we call voice leading rules. So we used to have to do like an entire module in school and university where I would have had to just study all about note movements and rules of what they can move to and what they can't move to. So contrary motion happens to be one of those that are very good and encouraged. So do use contrary motion, guys. So then there are some other rules, part writing rules, actually. Don't have parallel fifths or octaves between the top and the bass line. So that means you will want to avoid something like a parallel fifth is like, this is a fifth. And so a parallel fifth will mean that the notes move in the same direction, but they are a fifth apart like this. Yeah, and we don't want that. We also don't want parallel octaves like, yeah, we don't really encourage that at all. So don't do. The thing is, because we are not exactly doing like Bach part writing or something that's so strict, you don't actually have to really observe this rule. Like, so if you really did where I had the parallel octaves on the top and the bottom lines, if you really do that in the midst of a worship session, I don't think anyone's really going to notice. But because I've studied it before, and I kind of just believe that it's just, you know, it's a rule, right? So if it's a rule, I'm just going to observe it. So I would, from the moment I know that, oh, there's such a rule, I decided, okay, I guess I'll just apply it to my worship keys playing as well. So it depends on how purist you want to be, or how much you want to follow closely with the classical way of doing things. But yeah, if you can remember to avoid it, just avoid parallel fifths and parallel octaves. Instead, what I would recommend, and actually this used to be the rule as well, is to use parallel thirds and sixths. So thirds and sixths are really good. So for example, this is a third interval, right? So we call this a third interval. So thirds, they sound great and they're part of the rule. It's really good. It's allowed. A sixth would be that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So that's a sixth interval, and you are encouraged to have parallel six as well. Yep, so that's all good, and you should try to do that and use those if you can. Don't try to create passing chords a fifth apart or more. That gets a bit too clunky. Okay, so for example, usually you would want to link chords that are like sort of from chord 1 to chord 4. Right? So this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. If you're linking chord 1 to chord 5, then you have a distance of a fifth to get to, right? You have from C all the way up to G. So if I want to link from C to G, and I have like a 2 and a 3 and a 4 in between just to get up to G, it could sound very clunky, so I don't recommend that. So for example, you have okay, so right, so in order to get up to the G, I have to add 3 chords in between. I don't recommend that. So that's just something that I want to tell everybody, try not to do, okay? So let's go straight on with examples of passing chords. So basically, I won't be able to cover all the possible chord permutations here because there's just so many, but I hope you get how I use the above rules in linking between 2 chords, and you could do the same regardless of what 2 chords you're trying to bridge, okay? So let's do the first one where it's to link between chords 1 and 1B, and the passing chord you can use in between is a 2-7. So let's check it out. So this is chord 1, and this is chord 1B. So clearly you can look at the distance between the bass lines. It's a C, first one, and it's an E on the third chord. So in between clearly would be A2. So what is a chord you can use in between to link between 1 and 1B? It would be something that requires a chord 2. So you could just have a 2, but just as a hack outright for you guys, 2s don't sound so great in worship keys. Usually you want to use a 2-7. So I would add a 7 on top of the 2. That 7 there, and that will be the chord I use to link between them. So now instead of going from C to C over E or chord 1B, I put a 2-7 between them like this. Well, it might not be that I use a 2-7 specifically or strictly, I could even use something like a little bit of a difference. It doesn't have to be strictly F and A in between, but the D and the C is probably pretty important. So I might probably reshape them into something like yeah, just to make them sound good for worship. Yep. Something like that. Okay. So that would be my passing chord in between for an example 1. Example 2, I'm now going to link between chord 1 and 4. And then I have a 2/7 and a 1B in between. So very similar to just now, but instead of just going from 1 to 4, I'm going to have a 2/7. Well, I realized you don't really just need a 2/7. You can even have like a G7 over D. You know, you could just rearrange the inversion of a G7 chord, or maybe something like this, which sounds a little bit more like worship chordsy. And then I have a 1B, and then I have a 4. Okay, so if I were to rearrange the chord voicing, it would probably sound something like this. Right? So this is where I want to go. This is my destination. This is where I began from. Instead of going from here to this, I have passing chords in between like this. Okay, so here's an example of how I might use it in a worship, sort of like free worship context. So if I were to, you know, like how when you play a lot of free worship, a lot of the times people just use chords 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. Well, then to just make your 1/4 a little bit interesting, you could sneak in 2 passing chords like, okay, so first up, just the usual. That's 4. That's 1. That's 4. And then here's where I might want to just put in some passing chords. Something like that, yeah, just to enhance your chords. Instead of just going from 1 to 4, have them have in between 2 passing chords, which are these 2. So you could also have 2 passing chords to link between chord 2 to a 5. So instead of having 2 to 5 straight away, like to straight to 5, you can have a 2 and then a 1B, 4, and a 5, right? So these 2 chords, the 1B and the 4, are the passing chords. So if I want to reshape them, it would be instead of just 2 to a 5, I would do, yeah, so that's a nice little climb. It sounds a little bit smoother. The next example is where I link 1B to a 5. So it's a third apart. So 1B to 5. If I were to have no passing chord, it would be a 1B to a 5. So maybe something like, okay, so that's 1B to 5 straight away. But if I were to add a passing chord in between, it would be 1B, 4, 5. Yeah, so I think you get the point, guys. Basically, just add chords that have sort of like a stepwise motion in your left hand and your bass line. This is example number 5 where I link chords 6 to 1. So 6 would be, an example would be A minor. By the way, guys, if you haven't already realized, I'm doing everything in the key of C major just because it's like the easiest key and we don't have to worry about key signatures and stuff. So this is chord 6. This is chord 1. And so if I want to link between them, I could add a 5B between them, like 6, 5B, and then a C, right? So then I could just play like, oh, sorry, it should be 6 first, right? Okay, so that's no passing chords, but if I were to add a passing chord this time, right? So it just sounds a whole lot smoother. At this point, Rachel Poir was asking me about chromatic passing chords, and I wanted to make sure to address this. So I did a Wikipedia search, and it does define it as a chord. A chromatic passing chord is a chord that is not in the scale. So if we're talking about the key of C major, then the scale would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, right? Like everything white, basically, all the white keys. So chromatic passing chord would be chords that clearly would be outside of just those white keys. So we're going to start using some of the black keys now, and they do have a more jazzy sound, so sort of bridge two notes that are a tone apart, a tone meaning like they're next to each other, right? So if I have like a C, and I want to sort of bridge that to a D, then I'm going to have to use the note in between these two, which would be the C sharp. So this is where it does get a little bit advanced, and if you find it too difficult, don't worry about it, because this is sort of additional embellishing. You don't need that in worship songs, and in fact, it might not be appropriate for worship songs. So you want to just throw it in sparingly to sort of create like melodic and harmonic interest, but it's not necessary. It does add a very jazzy sound though. So for example, if I were to bridge two notes that are a tone apart, like for example, the first one is E minor 7 to a D minor 7. So an E minor 7 is, and then a D minor 7 is that. So I'm just gonna show that here. So E minor 7 and D minor 7. Right? So E minor 7, D minor 7. And if I want to link between these two, I need to have everything move down half a step to and on to D minor 7. So that would be a chromatic passing chord. So this would be a really, really jazzy sound. So if I ever have like a right? So everything's just really, really jazzy there. So once again, I'm just sort of arranging those chords. Instead of just doing that, I'm doing a sort of fuller version, like right? So I'm just adding a few. In fact, if you noticed, I didn't really use all four of these. I just kind of, and I just went on like the, right? So I omitted, I didn't play that, I didn't play that, I just played that. So have some fun with that, guys. It does sound pretty cool, but like I said, it's optional. The other example is a D minor 7 to a C over E, where I have a D sharp diminished 7 between. It does sound a little bit like Greek, guys, but don't freak out. Just kind of like go with the flow here. So this is D minor 7, and I want to link that to a C over E. So I can have a D minor 7, something like that, right? So that's really all the chromatic movement there is, guys. That being the chromatic chord there. So something like right. So that's one example. And another example I have here would be an A minor 7 leading up to a G over B. So A minor 7. Okay, so once again, the action really happens here. So that being the chromatic passing chord. One fond memory I have of this particular chord progression would be when I was just checking out, there was a season I was listening to tons of Israel Houghton. And of course, his music's really gospel in style, but there was this really, really awesome rendition of Oh, How I Love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. So it was kind of like, oh, right. So that was where they used like chromatic passing chords a whole lot. Oh, how I love Jesus. Right? So it's all really chromatic in that kind of a gospel style. So that was just what I remembered it to be. So moving on to here, like I said, it's rarely used in contemporary worship music. So you don't have to worry about using a lot of these chromatic passing chords in like a Hillsong song or a Bethel song. It's not so common. But if you do want to use it, you can use your discretion, because sometimes too many jazzy gestures might distract the worship, instead of helping people to worship, you might distract them, which is not really the point, guys, because our job as worship keyboardists is to just help people to worship, right? If we cause people to think of other stuff, then we've kind of not done our job. So the next thing I want to talk about, which is almost coming to an end, is a chromatic passing note can be used instead of a chord necessarily. So notes and chords, right? So we're talking about notes and not so much chords, as opposed to chord, right? So note and chord, what's the difference? So chord will be like 3 notes pressed down together, or maybe 3 or more chords, notes, but a note would just be a single note, right? A chord's made out of 3 notes at the very least. That's a chord. That's a note. So notes are single notes. So what I'm trying to say is you don't need necessarily a chord every time to pass between. You could just have a chromatic passing note, just a note itself. So my example here would be from this song called This Is My Desire, a really old song, but this is like a very classic way that I remember it to be used. So I've got a chord 1, and then I've got to go up to a chord 6. Okay, so this would be, for example, at the point where the song kind of starts with, this is my desire to honor you. Okay, so here's where it happens. From the 5 to the 6. Lord, with all my heart, right, and so forth. But I'm trying to say that you could actually use it at the 5 here, to worship you. And then here's where you can have a sort of a, on the left hand, to all I have within me, and stuff. Okay, so hang on. 3B7. So what on earth is that? So I just wanted to quickly describe it. So first up, you have a 3, which is a major. I'm just going to show you this view here. This would be a 3 major in the key of C major, right? So usually 3s are minor, but in this case it's a 3 major. And so it's a 3-7. So I add a D at the top, which makes it a 3-7. And then if I were to make that a B, which makes it first inversion, I will then have that chord. And by having that chord, I am able to use this chord as a passing from my 5 to my 6 chord, right? So instead of doing that, I can now have 5 and then a 3B7 and a 6. So you could do Lord with all my heart, right? Or you could actually just have one note moving, which is your bass line, which is, and then something like Lord with all. So all I did, guys, was to go from, with my pinky on my left hand, the G going up to an A flat or G sharp, however you want to call it, and then all I have, and then I've arrived at my chord 6. So basically you don't have to use a chord necessarily. You could use a note, and that will do. So this actually doubles up as a secondary dominant. So if you want to learn all about this crazy big word called secondary dominant, which sounds freaky, but if you understand it, it's not too difficult. You can watch my teaching at inspiredkeys.com/secondary. All right, so guys, I am almost done teaching. I can't believe it's been half an hour, but I'm just gonna come and turn off my screen sharing at this moment and come back on here live. And basically, I just wanna sort of finish up with, yeah, guys, if you have questions, just please ask, because I can see that there's one question over here. Then again, I'm not even sure if it's, I don't things. Civ Trick says, I just want to say you are amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Please let us know your name if you're watching. I've been playing piano at my church for about 9 months. Wish I would have found out about you sooner. You know what? God has his timings. And if you found out about me now, it is probably his timing, and you haven't found out too late. It's just, we're all learning, and it's a continuous journey. You've played for 9 months, which is awesome, but it's the beginning of a long time to play, right? And I'm sure when we go to heaven, we're still playing. So we might as well just keep learning and growing as keyboardists. So guys, just keep telling other people about this channel, because I want to answer worship keys questions and help everybody everywhere in the whole world elevate their worship keys playings, okay? So I was just about to conclude with that last bit there about using passing chords. Remember, it's okay to add passing chords when you're playing on your own, but if you're playing with other band members and you have other pitched instruments, you know, like there's a guitarist, there's a bassist, there is another keyboardist, right? You may not be free to add passing chords whenever you want, because you might create a clash in the harmonies and that may not sound good. So when you play by yourself, you could like do anything you want. You could just play any passing chord anytime. If you like to improvise, you could just play anything you want. But then when you play in a band, you gotta all be on the same page with what chord you play, because that directly affects how tight you guys sound as a band. So if you just decide, oh, okay, right now I'm gonna do a passing chord between 6 and 1, and if everyone else does not, then you will be the only one doing it. And that just wouldn't sound great. It makes the band less tight, and it could even come across really messy or distracting. So yeah, I really hope that that was helpful. And thank you to Inspired Keys Academy members, Rachel and David, for asking. And if you have worship keys questions as well, maybe you have something like this topic, right? Like a very technical theory kind of, I mean, seriously, guys, the reason why I'm teaching this is because I learned about music theory for many years as a classical pianist, right? I'm the typical story of my parents sent me to piano lessons. I wanted to quit when I was 10, hated the teacher, pretended not to, fell sick, pretended to fall sick really, and tried not to go to the class. But then I kind of grew up and I fell in love with it. And then I got to know Jesus, and then I started playing in church. And now I'm like, I absolutely love it. But yeah, if you have worship keys questions and you want a sort of very technical explanation about things, just like how I answer Rachel's and David's questions, then you are very welcome to join the Inspired Keys Academy. And I do want to quickly even take this chance to show you, if you're asking questions, if you come here and you're watching this video and you have a worship keys question, you are very welcome to ask. So I just wanted to show you really quickly what it's like when you join the Inspired Keys Academy. So first up, I would like to show you what it looks like inside. So if you go to inspiredkeys.com/academy, which you can only access once you have become a member, then you will see something like this. I just wanted to make sure I get all these pages ready for you. Yep. Yep, so here's the Academy members area where you will see forums, and I've got courses, all the courses that I've ever created, all in here. We have general discussions, which we used to do here, but now we've migrated over to Facebook groups, and I'll show you that in a minute. You could post your playing here, but usually we do this in the Facebook group now as well. And you could access all the handouts. You could access all the specific keyboard views. They're all packed here. You could access the 31 Days to Better Worship Keyboard Playing ebook. And hey, guys, that's $49 in value. So this is a really good deal. You could change things on your membership account, like change your password or upgrade or cancel. And I just wanted to show you real quick the 100 chord progressions. Guys, if you feel like you want to improve in your worship keys chord identification, then this is really awesome, because I just created not 10, not 50, but 100 chord progressions. And you can access the worksheet and the answers, but all of my videos are here. In exercise 1, you get 10 chord progressions, but there are only major chords, so it's a little bit easier. The second has 10 chord progressions, but they're in different shapes. The third exercise, 10 chord progressions in mixed positions. You know, there are so many, and then soon you get them in increasing difficulty. So by the time you get to exercise 8, you get 20 chord progressions in a mix of both major and minor chords in any key. So by the time you work your way to the 100th chord progression,
welcome.
Yep, so that's an example of how the video will play. But yeah, you will really get to see that you can do so much and start to just learn to identify chords by ear as well. I want to show you guys quickly how our Facebook group looks like. So this is our Inspired Keys Academy members Facebook group. So once you join, you can access this Facebook group. And as you can see, we post questions here. We post, I post announcements about courses that I have freshly released because Academy members get them first. People share introductions of themselves. Nathan just joined us. Woohoo, Nathan. And then we've got people commenting with questions. Rachel asking questions. Rachel's asking a lot of awesome questions. We've got David Franklin who posts really encouraging comments. And questions as well. Vicky, Mirinda, we've got lots of new members who joined recently, and I would love for you to join as well. And there's no better time to join, guys, because I am doing a limited time $1 trial where you can just come into the Academy, check it out for 2 whole weeks. So just gonna take a look right now and see if there are any questions that anyone might have asked during this time. And cool, okay, awesome. So David says, Sandra, do you ever find that sometimes the chords as written just don't sound right or full enough, and have you changed them? Hey, David, that's a fantastic question. David's an Inspired Keys Academy member, woohoo! And David's one of the most hardworking students as well, because he is literally always at my YouTube live teaching videos, and he's asking great questions. He's very active in the Academy, and I just want to honor him for that. And you know, David, it's true. I do find that sometimes the chords don't sound right. And to be very honest, I almost feel like, because a lot of these things are crowdsourced, right? So if you go to like ultimateguitar.com and you find chords for Who You Say I Am by Hillsong, a lot of these information are submitted by people anywhere. Sometimes I don't even know if they're vetted properly, unless you go to like the official websites, maybe like Bethel.org. Is it .org? I don't even know. But if you go to a Bethel website and you search up a Bethel song, I think those have to be correct. So far, they seem to be good. But a lot of the crowdsourced information, they can be dodgy. And so, David, I fully agree with you, which is why when I look at these chord sheets, a lot of times I just kind of fall back on what I hear with my ears, because I just feel like I trust myself a little bit better from my chord recognition skills versus taking wholesale what someone else tells me to play, because I'll tell you honestly, I've seen tons of mistakes. Like I look up chord sheets because I want to do up a chord sheet worship set for a worship team. I was a music director for a few years in different churches, and so I used to have to gather these chord sheets and print them out for the team. And when I search for these, because you know it's a lot of work typing the lyrics, right? So I might as well just copy and paste. I will usually have to vet through those chords. And David, guess what? A lot of these chords are wrong. Sometimes they are not wrong, but they are simplified. But sometimes they have so much additional information, like the diminished 7 at 2 sus4, and it becomes very difficult for anyone to process. So I sometimes find myself simplifying it to become just a good old F, you know, instead of an F sus2 add 5, you know, instead of that, I just make it easier because I feel like it makes the band play better. But you're right. So a lot of times I do change the quality of the chords, and go watch my video on awesome chord voicings, guys, because that's where I will tell you how to change those chords in a way that make them sound good good in contemporary worship. So for example, a lot of times you get just simple chords, right? On a chord sheet like C, F, A minor, and G, but I'll never play them clean like, right? So, I mean, unless you're playing it in a certain style, but usually I'll change it so that it sounds a little bit better for worship, like, right? I'll add some sus, and that's like a standard kind of voicing that I always use for these chords. And I shared all those secrets in that awesome voicings video, which I probably should link to. So I will link to that. I'm just going to quickly put that in my little notebook so that I will remember to do it. So David, thanks so much for your questions. And I hope I answered them. And if you're still watching, please type it in the comments and let me know if that answered your question. But Civ Tricks, thank you so much for your encouraging comment. I know there are a couple of us watching, so if you haven't given a shout out, do type it in there and let me know where you're from and what your name is so that I can acknowledge you and thank you for watching. And if you have questions, do type it in right now. But otherwise, do go to inspiredkeys.com/schedule. And I will just type that in there, inspiredkeys.com/schedule, to know when I am on again. I know I'll be coming on tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. So I'll come on tomorrow in Melbourne time, in the afternoon of Melbourne time. So I really hope that you are able to join me for that. If you have a Worship Keys question and you're watching this on replay and you want to ask me a question so that I can answer it in this platform, you could contact me at sandra@inspiredkeys.com. I'm probably just going to type that in, sandra@inspiredkeys.com. And you could submit your question that way, but I do want to let you know that Inspired Keys Academy members get their questions answered first because they just have priority. They have signed up to the Academy to show that they are very serious, and I want to honor and acknowledge them for that. So if you also want to take your Worship Keys up to the next level, then the Inspired Keys Academy is ready to welcome you. Remember to use the discount code $trial, and all the information is at the bottom in the description box so that you can check it out for 2 whole weeks for $1. So if there are no other questions, I just want to say thank you so, so much. I look forward to hearing from you. You can leave a comment. And oh, wonderful. David, thanks. I just saw what you said. Thanks. I feel better now. I'm so glad you feel better, and I really hope you will keep asking questions and keep feeling better that way. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was enlightening. I hope you learned something about passing chords today that you're going to start using in your Worship Keys playing. And yeah, give me feedback about whether it's helped you, because I would love to give you a shout out about what you're learning and, you know, like, whoa, I applied passing chords in my worship playing last weekend for the very first time, for example. And that will absolutely make my day. I mean, that's the reason why I set up my keyboard and I turn on my laptop and I do this, and I'm doing it every day for a season because I really want to help you guys out there. So if you have a Worship Keys question, guys, don't wait. And I will look to it, do my research, and do up a video so that I can teach it in a Worship Keys live teaching session like this. So thank you so much again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow afternoon Melbourne time when I come on for another live teaching session. In the meantime, take care, God bless, happy playing for God, and I look forward to speaking with you.